Most of the scientists, they were called natural philosophers largely, but they were rigorous scientists, mathematicians and geographers and geologists and chemists, and these were, and many of them were polymaths, which is a term that means that they were literate in a number of sciences. And they were also often very much into mysticism. And because at that time, the idea was if you just study nature, you're going to discover the mind of God, because the mind of God is in nature. So they call these natural philosophers. So a bunch of things happened right around the 15th, 16th century, just sort of prior to the Industrial Revolution, which was an outcome of these scientific discoveries. But one of the things that happened was Copernicus, right towards the end of his life, made a public announcement that all of his mathematical applications, all these laws of science that he understood, had demonstrated to him a earth-shattering, he discovered something that really shook the universe of primarily the church and also a lot of the intellectuals in the scientific community. But he said, based on all his mathematical calculations, it really appears to be that the earth is not the center of the universe. It actually appears to be the sun. And we're actually going around the sun. And that shocked people. And for quite a while, it was sort of dismissed until Galileo came along, a little less than 100 years later, and had developed a telescope, and also math had sort of evolved a little bit. And he offered definitive proof that, in fact, it's actually true. What Copernicus said is true. The sun is the center. We're going around the sun. And it really unsettled people. But it also opened up the possibility that the sciences, that mathematics, could begin to explain things in ways that we had never imagined. And also, right around this time, bubonic plague struck Europe, right? So imagine like a third to a half of the population dying from the plague. So something happened in both science and religion. What happened in religion at the time was people began to focus on redemptive religious traditions. So redemption is the idea that if you just live a really good life and you follow a lot of these prescriptions, you'll have an afterlife where everything will be cool. Because clearly down here it's not very good. I mean, look at all the people that died. I mean, it's really rough down here. This is a really sinful, awful place, obviously, right? I mean, gosh, a third of my family's dead. Half my village died. So religion became focused on this sort of redemption, and the sciences began to look at disaggregating all the laws of the universe and began to make discoveries that really advanced our abilities to control and regulate and predict. So like the forces of attraction and gravitational things were predicted, and this just flourished. And it sort of culminated with Descartes. And the Cartesian worldview comes out of the word Descartes. Descartes was a brilliant, we all know him as the one who said, I think, therefore I am. But what he really said was, look, the entire universe is a machine. God set into motion all the particles and all the beings and the bodies, and they're all following laws of motion. And it's all a massive machine. And it's a really well-constructed machine. And what makes us different, though, in case you wanted to know, and he declared this, what makes human beings different is we have soul. God gave us soul. So we are different than all the other. So he actually did some really gruesome things to make his point, including dissecting animals live and telling his students, you need to ignore the screams of this dog that we're dissecting because that's just a machine running down. And he actually, it's horrific stuff, yet he was trying to demonstrate that the human being had soul. Okay, so this became the theme that pushed science in a direction of control of almost everything. And I want to say that was supported by the large religious traditions of the time. So I'm taking this out of the Hebrew Bible, the book of Genesis 1:26, the Christian Old Testament. This is a little support for the control of nature. I know most of you have heard this quote. Let us make mankind in our image and our likeness so that he may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So it's basically, the mandate was we're in charge, we're in control, we can do what we want. And I don't think there was any vicious intent, but it was just an experience of massive discoveries through these applications of scientific laws, physics and chemistry and biology all flourishing and leading to great, tremendous discoveries with the idea that if we just keep going, we're going to solve all of our problems and everything's going to be good. And I think that whole worldview began to come apart for a lot of reasons. And one of the big ones was, it was a kind of combination of things, but I think our recognition that our impact on the environment was actually going to end up hurting us made us really reconsider this industrial revolution, the scientific revolution. It began to have us in the middle of the 20th century, 1950s and 60s, we began to really take a different approach.